Actually, you know what? Maybe I should put on something green. Yeah, I'm gonna put on something green. Okay, there we go. Just hang out there, buddy. And we're in green. Alright. Now we're ready. Warm greetings, Code Monkeys, and welcome back to Superhero Month. So, let us touch on the Hulk. So apparently there's a lot of people who think this movie really sucks, and yeah, you know what, I'm not one of those people. I really like this movie. I actually think it's really damn good. But before I get into the actual movie itself, I suppose that I should touch a little bit on the whole issue of recasting. Marvel has done very little in the way of recasting roles in the MCU. Generally speaking, when you start as somebody in the MCU, yeah, you're gonna stay in that role until they don't need you anymore. The two major exceptions to this are Rhodey and Bruce Banner. Now, in the case of Rhodey / War Machine, yeah, I think that that was a really good recasting. A recasting that I think needed to happen. I think you needed to take a little bit more of a serious tone with that character, particularly by the time you get to Civil War, so I thought that was a really good recasting. And when it comes to Ed Norton versus Mark Ruffalo, I actually like them both a lot, for very different reasons. And I'm going to get into why the recasting happened a little bit here. So if that subject doesn't really interest you, like if you don't really care why the Hulk / Bruce Banner is played by a different person in the Hulk's individual movie than the rest of the MCU movies, like if that's not something that you care about, then you can go ahead and skip to this time signature here, and that's when I'll be done talking about this particular aspect of it. So for those of you who are sticking around, obviously Edward Norton played the Hulk in the Hulk's one and so far only individual movie. Kevin Feige, or Kevin Feige, I have no idea how to pronounce that dude's last name, I'm sorry, had made some sort of statement regarding Edward Norton being replaced by Mark Ruffalo that basically boiled down to, I can't remember what the exact phrasing, it was like, they were looking for an actor who better embodied the collaborative spirit of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which was honestly a kind of dickish way of putting it. Like, even if Ed Norton had been kind of a jackass about it, which he may have been, I don't know, nobody really knows. Even if that were the case, you should show a little bit more class than that. Edward Norton definitely got pissed about that particular remark, and he responded by saying that it was basically all about money and that they didn't want to pay him what he was worth to be playing this role. But then later in an interview on NPR, I think it was NPR, he basically clarified that position. When you sign up to be a main player in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you're not just signing up for, you know, acting in the movies, you're also signing up for, you know, doing all sorts of press junkets, essentially doing like big tours, you know, appearing at like conventions and stuff. And Edward Norton was not interested in participating in that aspect of it. He really didn't want to do that kind of stuff, and apparently was fairly unwilling to compromise on that. And also he was worried about being typecast, and he wasn't enthusiastic about the prospect of basically signing away the next 10 or so years of his career to almost exclusively playing Bruce Banner / the Hulk, which I definitely understand. And because of this, he and Marvel were not able to come to an agreement, and they sort of separated ways. There's definitely fault on both sides here, like maybe Marvel should have done a better job of explaining to Edward Norton exactly what he was getting into by accepting this role, or maybe they did explain it and Ed Norton just kind of was hoping to get out of it. Like I said, it's really nobody's fault per se. I don't blame Edward Norton for not wanting to focus a big chunk of his acting career on just this one role and this one project, because, you know, that's a hard decision to make, you know, and I respect his choice, and I also understand and respect Marvel's choice to then not move forward, not, you know, acquiesce to his demands, because they needed somebody who was going to do what they needed that character to do in the movies. I get that. And, you know, everybody involved, you know, they're adults making adult decisions, and, you know, whether there was any bad blood involved or whatever, I understand the actions of everybody involved, and I hope that nobody is being, like, demonized as a result of that. And I have seen some of that happening surrounding talk about this movie. So I just want to make that clear that I don't really fault anybody for the whole recasting situation. It was just something that had to happen. So yeah, that I just wanted to touch on that. But anyway, back to the movie itself. Like I said, this movie's really gotten kind of trashed over the years, and I guess on some level I kind of understand. In terms of plot, there's really not much that happens, and the two romantic leads really just don't have very much chemistry, like, at all. And the pacing, yes, is very uneven, but I actually really like that. I like how the movie kind of starts very slow and just builds momentum and builds momentum and builds momentum up until you get to a Hulk out scene, and then everything is big and explosive and and then after the Hulk out scene, the momentum immediately stops and you begin another slow build. I actually think that's really cool, and I really like that about this movie. But I do understand how it might get tiring for some. But what I think I like best about this movie is that it does more than any other MCU movie does to make the important point that Bruce and the Hulk are very separate characters. Like, the thing that a lot of Hulk stories do is that, you know, Bruce Banner has, you know, all this character development and, like, all of this, you know, baggage and all of this emotional worry, and then the Hulk comes, Hulk is big monster, not entirely devoid of personality, but certainly, like not a very complex character. But the Hulk really does have great characterization in this movie, because the Hulk is basically a frightened child lashing out at a world that is constantly attacking him. The Hulk just wants to be left alone. You know, he doesn't really understand why it is that people are attacking him. He doesn't understand what's going on. And so yes, he gets angry, but it's because he's afraid. There's this whole scene where Hulk has taken Betty to this safe place somewhere in the mountains, and there's this big storm brewing, and all of a sudden there's like lightning and thunder, you know, that's going on, you know, really loud, really close by, and the Hulk like turns around, he like throws a giant rock up into the sky, starts roaring at the storm, and it's really a beautiful scene, because you get so much out of that moment to understanding just how frightened and childlike the Hulk is. I really love it. I also like the look of the Hulk in this movie. I think I prefer the look of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk a little more, just overall, but I like how this Hulk has sort of like a overgrown linebacker kind of look to him. Looks a bit more agile. I think it's a cool take on the look of the Hulk in general. Edward Norton gives a great sense of fear and worry to Bruce Banner, and like he really makes you feel the constant fear and stress of what it must be like to be living with this condition and constantly trying to keep a lid on it. Now, granted, the Marvel movies thus far have not had a real high bar for interesting villains. You know, like a fair number of these movies have really forgettable bad guys in them. But I actually really like what they do with the Abomination in this movie. I think it's really cool. And I pretty much credit that to the actor playing him. The text of the character, the text of the script and the lines he's given, there's not a whole lot there, but just through like the little bits of acting that he does and like little facial twitches and just odd gestures, you really get a great sense of subtext, and you get the sense of just kind of how unhinged this character is and how he becomes more and more unhinged as the movie goes on. Basically, he's this man who's been kind of driven a little bit nuts by his life experiences, and now he's been handed this power that not only can he not control, but he is actually not interested in controlling it. Like, he wants to unleash it and he wants more of it. He's at least partially created by a sort of imperfect version of the super soldier serum that created Captain America. And as they say in the Captain America the First Avenger, the serum amplifies everything that is inside. So good becomes great, but bad becomes worse. It's definitely the case with Abomination. The Lou Ferrigno cameo is also really cute. I really appreciated that. And the way they execute the Hulk actually saying out loud the phrase Hulk smash, oh my god, it's so cool. It's cheesy. Yeah, okay, it's cheesy, but you know what? These are superhero movies. Can we enjoy the cheese? I like the cheese. I like the sort of dirty but still colorful aesthetic that they go for in this movie, and I really like the variety of scenarios that they put the Hulk in, you know, like variety of terrain, variety of things that he's fighting, I think it's really cool, and it makes the Hulk scenes feel, you know, feel distinct and separate from one another, whereas they could easily have gotten sort of monotonous. I also like the character of General Ross. Like, I think he's a pretty interesting take on a bad guy, because you definitely understand what motivates him, and you can very easily see where he thinks that what he is doing is the proper thing to be doing, and it's kind of hard to fault him for thinking the way that he does. Even though you do know that he's wrong, you really understand why it wouldn't even occur to him that he is wrong. And of course, General Ross goes on to play a role in Civil War that, you know, is less interesting than what they have him doing in this movie, but still, I like General Ross. I want them to do more with that guy. And I suppose I'll just touch on Mark Ruffalo a little bit. I really like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner and as the Hulk. It's definitely a different take on the character, but I really like what Mark Ruffalo does with Bruce in particular. Like, you always get the sense that there's something else on his mind, and he's always seems very preoccupied, like he's never really fully present in the moment, which definitely makes sense. And even if you had no idea that this guy was the Hulk, like if he just started out as a background character in the MCU, you would still get that sense that, like, there's something about this guy, there's something that he's not telling you. And you know, he's got something going on, and I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's nothing good. And I also like how it sort of carries forth the idea from the ending of the Incredible Hulk movie that when the whole principle behind, you know, what's the line that Edward Norton says? Oh yeah, when he's talking about, you know, like, he's asked, you know, do you think you can control the Hulk? He says, no, not control it, but maybe aim it. And it's that moment where he chooses to become the Hulk, and he chooses to let that side of himself out, that the Hulk ceases to be a wanton machine of destruction and becomes, again, maybe not something that's so much controlled, but definitely aimed. And the end of the movie kind of implies that when Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk out of fear, and when he tries to resist it, that's when the Hulk becomes really dangerous. It's only when he accepts that side of himself and chooses to embrace it that he's able to exercise a certain degree of control or influence over the Hulk. I like that. It is fairly subtextual. Like, I don't know that I don't know that the Avengers or this movie really do a good enough job of explaining it. It's definitely there in the subtext, but it can be a little hard to spot, and I wouldn't blame anybody who didn't really get it, who was thinking, like, wait, so why can he sort of control the Hulk sometimes but not others? Like, I don't get it. I get why people would be confused. But overall, I really do enjoy this movie. I think it's pretty darn good. I like the unique approach that it takes to the material. And in terms of the romantic pairing, you know, it's definitely a problem that Edward Norton and Liv Tyler don't really have great on-screen chemistry, but at the same time, it's an interpersonal dynamic that I think is very much needed in this movie. Like, the movie would not function better without the character of Betty Ross. Like, she really does need to be there. But thankfully it was a very short-lived thing, and Bruce Banner was never involved in a really stupid or unbelievable romance subplot again. Right? Okay, I'm done harping on that, I promise. On the worth meter, I would call The Incredible Hulk worth owning. As I've said, it may be a little slow-paced at times, but I feel it's really thematically appropriate. I really like the sort of rising and falling action, and I think that this movie does a really good job of telling both a Bruce Banner story and a Hulk story in one. Next time, we're going to be talking about Ant-Man, so give that a watch if you're interested. And until next time, Code Monkeys, I will see you later.